Thanks to its beginnings as a best-selling book, World War Z seems destined for box office glory someday, but that road to the big screen wasn't always an easy one. We're taking a look back at the ending of World War Z and how it got from prized source material to hailed script to problem production to box office hit. After the success of his 2003 how-to manual, The Zombie Survival Guide, author Max Brooks decided to take his love of The Walking Dead up a notch. His next book was a harrowing oral history-style novel set in the era after the outbreak of a virus that reanimates corpses and nearly wipes out the human race. In it, a member of the UN Post-War Commission travels to locations around the world, conducting interviews that take the reader from the first hotspots to the collapse of society to the darkest moments, when humanity finds a way to fight back. Audiences responded with great enthusiasm, and World War Z would top the New York Times bestseller list, eventually selling more than 1 million copies. With that level of success, it was only a matter of time before Hollywood came calling, and Brad Pitt's company Plan B eventually landed the rights. Pitt brought on J. Michael Straczynski, a veteran genre writer behind cult classics like Babylon 5, to craft the first draft of the script. Straczynski's version kept the interview format of the book intact, and his draft was strong enough to attract director Mark Forster to the project. It was here that the first signs of trouble in the making of the film began to emerge.
I want my blanket!
Fresh off his James Bond film Quantum of Solace, Forster's ideas for World War Z clashed with Straczynski's, and the director asked for rewrites. State of Play writer Matthew Michael Carnahan was brought in to develop a new, more action-heavy script, and major changes were made. Instead of focusing on the aftermath of the war with the zombies, the new script placed Pitt's character, Jerry Lane, in the middle of the outbreak from the beginning. Carnahan's script was solid enough that shooting could begin, but studio executives still weren't sure about the film's ending. In Carnahan's version of the story, Pitt's Jerry Lane would endure everything from a crash landing in Russia to a time jump to an invasion of the west coast of the United States, all without ever reuniting with his family. Eventually, it was decided that rewrites and reshoots were needed to get the film in shape. Lost writer Damon Lindelof and later The Martian writer Drew Goddard were brought in to offer tweaks to Carnahan's script. What they eventually delivered was an all-out, expensive redesign of the film's third act, which Paramount agreed to fund. The film's budget ballooned to at least $190 million, and by the end of the shoot, Forster and Pitt were reportedly not on speaking terms anymore. So, after all this back and forth, where did we wind up? Instead of crash landing in Russia, Lane's zombie-infested fight out of Israel heads for a World Health Organization facility in Wales. As it's coming in for a landing, however, the zombies threaten to overrun everything. Lane, in either a really brilliant or really dumb move, detonates a grenade that tears a hole in the fuselage and depressurizes the cabin, leading to all the zombies being sucked out and the plane coming in for an intense crash landing. After a blackout, Lane, impaled by a rather large piece of shrapnel, wakes up in the wreckage and tries to make his way to the WHO outpost that was his initial destination. Overcome by his injuries, he loses consciousness and later awakes under the care of a WHO doctor, played by future Doctor Who star Peter Capaldi. After regaining his senses, he comes to a shocking conclusion. Having seen the zombie horde pass by the sick and elderly, he believes that the virus drives its host to seek out only healthy and viable victims to facilitate its spread. Could this be the key to humanity's survival? Wouldn't you know it, a WHO facility is just the place for Lane to test his theory that, by infecting oneself with a deadly but curable pathogen, it's possible to create a sort of camouflage that will cause zombies to ignore a potential victim. The only problem is that the lab containing the types of pathogens he needs is in the zombie-infested part of the building. In order to figure this all out and possibly save humanity, Lane and his companions have to embark on a sort of stealth mission, sneaking their way onto a particular vault without alerting the dormant undead wandering the halls. Here, we see the results of Lindelof and Goddard's effort to scale the action down to a more personal level. Rather than an epic battle, we're treated to a tense game of cat and mouse as Lane and company tiptoe their way toward the relevant vault. While they're eventually separated, Lane does get where he needs to go. Once he's there, however, he's trapped by a zombie blocking the exit, which is the perfect impetus for him to conduct the kind of experiment that only works in the movies. Injecting himself with an unknown pathogen, he then opens the door, only to find himself ignored by every zombie he encounters on his walk back to freedom.
He just walked right past them.
That climax having happened, we then move into a conclusion that dovetails somewhat back toward the larger geopolitical scope of the book. With Lane's theory proven correct, we see the distribution of an injectable vaccine brewed from a strain of meningitis to people around the world, as humankind begins to fight back. We see scenes of various battles, including some of the footage of the Moscow fight from the original Cuts ending. Zombies are burned, evacuations are conducted, and a note of hope on a global scale is sounded.
If you can fight, fight.
True to the rework's purpose, however, the main focus remains personal, as Lane and his family are happily reunited in a safe haven in Nova Scotia. Pitt's voiceover speaks of a war just begun, but for his character, it seems the journey has ended in the best possible place, back together with his wife and daughters and out of harm's way. It took a while for World War Z to finally make the leap from page to screen, and the film version endured more than its share of battle to get there. After all that, would audiences respond to the film? Yes, they would. World War Z exploded to a box office take of $202.4 million domestically and $540 million worldwide, which were pretty great numbers for a film with such a troubled production history. It also earned the biggest opening weekend of Pitt's career, devouring $66.4 million in its first 3 days. Despite its troubles, World War Z's success showed that audiences were still hungry for more zombie stories, even in a world already saturated by the likes of Zombieland and The Walking Dead. Meanwhile, everyone involved emerged unscathed. Pitt is still a huge star, and went on to hit a career high with 2019's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Straczynski moved on to write the cult hit TV series Sense8. Forster directed Christopher Robin for Disney, and Damon Lindelof eventually created one of 2019's best new series, Watchmen. Not bad for the crew behind a movie that, as it staggered to its ending, seemed like it would probably be dead on arrival. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.